big ticket announcement is allocation of 35,000 crores in the union budget towards priority capital investments for energy transition, net zero objectives, and energy security by the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas. Earlier in the day, there was some doubt about how much of the allocation would be for the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, and what would this energy transition and net zero objective entail. Towards the end of the day, it emerged that this entire allocation was for the Ministry of Petroleum and Natural Gas, which means that this 35,000 crore is likely to be spent towards creating strategic reserves for oil and gas, a definite outcome of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and possibly for capital expenditure by the oil marketing corporations to help them target advanced products which can come out through refining of petrochemicals. But gas itself can become a bridge fuel as we start to integrate more and more renewables into our energy mix, given the intermittent nature of renewables. And this could potentially displace more polluting domestic coal-based thermal power plants. The second announcement was regarding energy storage projects, wherein energy storage systems with a capacity of 4,000 megawatt hour could be supported with viability gap funding. To me, this looks like a case of the ministry having observed the past energy storage tenders and then deciding that this is a sector that needs viability gap funding. Projects which have storage and which have a minimum capacity of 4,000 megawatt hour will be eligible for this. So, of course, this leaves out distributed consumers like residential consumers who might be trying to install smaller storage systems. But at the same time, it also shows the way towards integration of large-scale energy storage systems. This could be the way that the government starts to think about offshore wind projects, which have also been asking for viability gap funding. The mantra could be that test a few bids, see what is the response, and then see what is the quantum of viability gap funding that is needed. Ministry has also announced a detailed framework for pumped storage projects. These are also important, especially in areas where hydro resources are available, but one needs to keep in mind the trade-off between also not damaging biodiversity and protecting the rights of people who would potentially be displaced by these projects. Third announcement was regarding the interstate system for evacuation and grid integration of 13 gigawatt of renewable energy from Ladakh, which would be constructed with an investment of about 20,700 crores, which includes the central support of 8,300 crores. Now, this is a very good announcement as far as tapping into the renewable energy potential is concerned, but we need to be mindful that the ecosystem in Ladakh is fragile, and we shouldn't go overboard with installation of renewable energy projects that can damage some of the traditional ways of living, the ecosystem within the union territory. And we should also be respectful of what the people want. If they do not want an influx of significant infrastructure projects which can harm their livelihood in many ways, then we definitely need to keep that in mind as we plan these projects out.
India's 65 million MSMEs are the backbone of Indian economy, accounting for around 30% of the country's GDP and directly employing nearly 110 million people. This sector was hit hard by knock-on effects of the COVID pandemic and the global slowdown. In FY21, the government announced the Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme, which has succeeded in shielding MSMEs from financial distress. A much improved financial health of public sector banks has positioned them better to increase the credit supply. Consequently, the credit growth to MSME sector has been remarkably high, over 30.6% on average during January to November 2022, supported by the extended Emergency Credit Linked Guarantee Scheme of the Union government. Union Finance Minister announced in the Union budget a revamped credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs, a welcome move that is expected to funnel around 9,000 crore rupees into the sector. New credit guarantee scheme will lower the cost of credit for MSMEs by 1% and will allow them to avail an additional collateral-free credit guarantee of 2 lakh crore rupees. This creates a unique opportunity for MSMEs to diversify their operations and create more jobs in terms of investment in energy efficiency measures and renewable energy interventions, and do away with the fossil fuel assets. The scaling up of manufacturing units is also visible from the fact that employment has been rising faster. The infusion of 9,000 crore rupees into the MSME sector also means that these units will now have access to upfront capital required for energy efficiency and renewable energy investments, which has been one of the bottlenecks for the sector to carve a low emission pathway for its future growth. These MSME units form part of the supply chain for large industries. While there is a renewed focus on decarbonizing the industrial sector, the announcements in this year's budget speech ensured that these MSME units are not left behind and have the equal opportunity for a just transition from fossil fuel-based economy to a greener one.
This year's union budget had a really good focus on green agriculture and supporting green businesses through startups. Given that India's soil, especially agricultural lands, are degrading, there is a need for a larger focus on natural farming, and this year's budget talks about criticality of that and how that can be taken forward. In this year of International Year of Millets, the focus on millets and creating a center for excellence and research and infrastructure around that is quite noteworthy, to see how essentially we can diversify food plates and also look at, it can help in supporting nutritional requirements of a diverse group of population. An announcement on agriculture accelerator fund, which is welcome. The restoration sort of entrepreneur, the land and agricultural entrepreneur system in India is quite nascent. And the accelerator fund will really strengthen the startup ecosystem, help the businesses with the capital that they need to grow. So very welcome move in terms of really creating farmer incomes and livelihoods as these businesses can also support in. On the agriculture sides, the focus of the livelihood mission's continued focus rather on the economic empowerment of women through SHGs and formation of larger producer enterprises or collectives is quite noteworthy. It will help in larger, more social inclusion and women taking forward work around through livelihoods, including on restoration, agriculture, and other allied activities. There was a focus also on the restoration side on mangroves protection and as well as wetlands. Both are important, specifically the Mishti scheme, which helps in encouraging mangrove plantations. That again would help in mitigation, but also supports really in building resilience for our climate vulnerable communities, especially around the coastlines of India.
Budget 2023, which was announced, was truly a green budget, and I think there was a lot of things that really talk about how we are going to advance our transportation, connectivity, and infrastructure. There was a big announcement of a green credit program for encouraging behavioral change in line with the government's LIFE initiative, which is going to be notified under the Environmental Protection Act. I think mobility as a sector has a huge role to play in supporting this LIFE initiative and also nudging people towards behavioral change by moving to zero emission vehicle and sustainable modes of travel. A 10,000 crore urban infrastructure development fund was announced through priority sector lending shortfall, and this will help in transforming urban planning and also making cities more sustainable, where mobility again becomes one of the core sectors and themes in improving connectivity in our cities. Also announcement around the whole green hydrogen mission, which really talks about an outlay of over 19,000 crores plus, which also targets about 5 metric million tons of green hydrogen production by 2030. Finally, there was also one announcement around vehicle scrappage policy in the budget, which was announced earlier, but more funds will be provisioned to support efforts to scrap old vehicles of the central government. In fact, more than 9 lakh vehicles are being targeted, including ambulance. States too can avail support to scrap old vehicles and old ambulances. So in overall, I would say it's a very big announcement. The focus will also be on 100 critical infrastructure projects where transportation would be a key part of it.
Just a quick recap from the budget. Very exciting for several of our work programs on climate, on landscape restoration, energy, and on cities. The green budget announcement was very encouraging. The extended credit for MSMEs is a real opportunity for MSMEs to raise capital and support them through the clean energy transition. The agriculture accelerator announcement is very promising for young entrepreneurs, especially the focus on value chains and communities. The allocations made toward the energy transition were mostly in the oil and natural gas space, but there is also a lot of promise for RE, given that there is a focus on battery storage and also the easing of imports on the lithium-ion batteries. The urban development fund that was urban infra development fund that was announced for tier 2 and tier 3 cities, brings a focus on urban planning that can drive integrated development of land services and transport, especially in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. Overall, very exciting announcements, especially relevant to a lot of work we are doing. And we are hoping a lot of this translates to real programs and projects on the ground. And at WRI India, we are very, very excited to support most of these initiatives along the way. Thank you.